and welcome to our video series about suicide prevention. My name is Melissa Knight, and I'm a suicide prevention educator with Crisis Services of North Alabama. I would also like to mention that my colleague, Taylor Yazidis, will also be featured in some of these videos, so keep an eye out for her. We wanted to do this video series for you guys because it's a stressful time. There's a lot going on in America, there's a lot going on in the world, and people are starting to feel the weight. There are people who are depressed, who are anxious, who are overwhelmed, who are tired, and they need someone to help. With this video series, we hope to instill in you the confidence to be able to step up and be that helper for the people in your life. Between 40 and 50,000 Americans die by suicide every year. And the thing to know about that is that it's preventable. There are ways to prevent suicide. One thing to start with is knowing the myths and the facts, what's true and what's not. There are many myths permeating our society about suicide, and many of them are harmful. So let's start there. Let's learn about myths and misconceptions. First myth: nobody can stop a suicide if the person has made up their mind. The fact is, most suicides are preventable. People are often searching for relief from pain, and getting help can make that relief possible. People who are suicidal, they don't want to die. They want their pain to go away. They want their problems to go away. They want their suffering to go away. People, if they were given a choice between having their problems fixed and dying, would choose having their problems fixed. They want to live, they just don't want to live in pain. The good news is there are avenues out of that pain that do not include suicide. There are therapies, there are doctors, there's family, religious leaders, counselors, friends. There's all kinds of people in everybody's life who were willing, who are able, hopefully willing, to step up and help out. If we can show people another avenue out of their pain, then that will prevent the suicide. Remember, the suicide is not necessarily the problem. The problem is those issues that that person thinks they cannot solve. Let's help them solve those issues. But first, let's continue learning about some myths and facts. Next myth: asking about suicide will make the situation worse or put the idea in the person's head. Truth is, asking about suicide actually lowers anxiety, opens up communication, and reduces the risk of impulsive acts. It's an invitation for that person to be open with you without fear of judgment. Many times people who are struggling with suicidal thoughts hesitate to reach out because they're afraid of the messages that they'll receive back. They're afraid that they'll be made fun of or brushed off or told to just try to get over it. There are lots of possible ways that people can respond that are harmful. So people often are afraid to ask for help. What you're doing when you ask them directly if they're suicidal is you're opening that door. You're saying, I'm a safe person to talk to. I want to start this conversation with you. I know it's going to be about suicide, and that's okay. You're free to talk. That's important. The first step in preventing a suicide is making sure that the suicidal person is heard and seen. Listen to their story. Help them see some hope. That's your job as a helper. But remember, ask about suicide. There are several ways to ask about suicide. If you want to be direct, you can say, are you having any suicidal thoughts? Or even, are you thinking about killing yourself? If you'd prefer to take a less direct approach, one good way is, people who feel like you're feeling often have thoughts of suicide. Is that something you're having too? There are several ways to ask about it. But remember, there are ways not to ask about it as well. One way to avoid asking is, you're not thinking about suicide, are you? Or, surely you wouldn't actually do that. The way those questions are asked makes it clear that the expected answer is no. If I come to you and I say, you're not thinking about suicide, are you? Your instinct is going to be to say no, because I made it clear that I want you to say no. There's a bias in my question that tells you you can't be open with me. So avoid that. Ask it in a neutral way. Ask it in a way that invites the person to simply tell their story without fear of being judged or brushed off. Next myth: suicidal people keep their plans to themselves, and those who talk about suicide don't actually do it. This is a very dangerous myth. This tends to keep us from stepping up and trying to help out because we think there's nothing we can do. Fact is, 90% of people who die by suicide communicate their intentions to someone in one form or another. That can include direct statements, coded clues, or anything in between. Now, don't be confused by the last slide as compared to this one. People who are wanting to ask for help do often keep it to themselves out of fear. But once that person has decided to take the route of suicide, 90% of them communicate that intention. So it's important to ask about suicide, as important to ask as it is to listen to the clues and the warning signs. Myth: suicide happens without warning signs. Around 80% of suicides have preceding warning signs of some sort. These can look different for different people, and sometimes they can be hard to spot, but there are definitely things to look out for. We have an upcoming video where we will be addressing warning signs and risk factors and things for you to watch for in the people that you are afraid for, or the people that you're concerned for. So keep an eye out for that video. That one's going to be a really good one for you. Next myth: suicidal. Once a person is suicidal, they are suicidal forever. That's not true. Suicidal thoughts do not have to be permanent. There's help out there, and many people recover fully from suicidal ideations. 90% of people who die by suicide have an untreated or undertreated mental health issue at the time of their death. Mental health issues are treatable. They might not be curable, but they are treatable. There are several therapies out there that have been developed to address specific mental health issues: anxiety disorder, depression, bipolar disorder. Many people go through these treatments and come out the other side feeling much better and being free from suicidal ideations. So don't get trapped in the thinking that once a person is suicidal, there's nothing you can do to help. You can always help. Next myth: suicidal people really want to die. We've mentioned this briefly already in the video, so hopefully you already know the answer to this one. Most suicidal people don't actually want to die. They want their pain and their problems to go away. Remember, given the choice between living happy and dying, they'll choose living happy. So let's help them find that happiness. Listen to them, hear them, see them, and point them towards some resources that can really help them out. Myth: people who threaten to kill themselves are just seeking attention. Please don't fall for this myth. Suicidal statements and threats should always be taken seriously. Remember, 90% of people who die by suicide communicate their intentions to someone beforehand and then actually go through with it. Don't think that just because they're talking about it, it means they're safe. Pay attention. That's a distress signal. And it could be direct or indirect. They may say something like, "I want to commit suicide," or "I want to die." They may say something like, "I can't do this anymore. Soon you won't have to worry about me. Nobody would care if I wasn't around." They can look different, but it's important to remember that indirect statements and direct statements are equally serious. One is not more important or more serious or more immediate than the other. Both of them are requests for help. So let's listen to those requests. Let's step up. Let's be the person who steps in to help. Thank you for viewing our first video in our suicide prevention series. Again, we hope this series gives you the confidence and the ability to step up and help the people in your life that you love and care for. Keep an eye out for our other videos. We're going to be covering topics such as warning signs and risk factors, how to talk to children who are going through suicidal thoughts, and other things that may be helpful for you. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again soon.